各位来宾 ，AI 正以前所未有的速度成为企业营运、创新以及竞争力的核心基础。这股浪潮带来的巨大机会，也放大了风险以及安全责任。在 AI 时代，趋势科技正式将企业资安事业群命名为 TrendAI。代表趋势科技业务持续演进的方向，也象征以 AI 为技术核心，回应真实世界的资安威胁，并将资安风险管理视为企业营运的关键议题。接下来的演讲将会从策略以及实务并进的角度，带领大家看见 AI 时代网络犯罪的下一步。接下来，请大家以热情的掌声欢迎趋势科技 TrendAI 威胁研究总监 Flores 为我们带来当信任彻底失败 AI 时代的网络犯罪新商业模式。Please welcome Flores, Threat Research Director at TrendAI, to deliver his keynote speech. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. It's happy to be back here in CyberSec. I titled my presentation Trust Under Attack 9-year retrospective because 9 years ago, I was actually speaking here in CyberSec, giving also the same keynote, right? CyberSec was a little bit smaller during that time, I remember, but the t-shirt, I remember, is still as cool as it is today. What I presented 9 years ago is about business email compromise. That is the major threat that was ongoing during that time, affecting a lot of organizations, affecting a lot of companies, Taiwanese companies included. But of course, the threat landscape right now has changed drastically, right? And actually, a lot of things happened after November 2022, because that is when ChatGPT was released publicly, right? And right after ChatGPT was released publicly, we saw 1,000% increase in spam emails, because that's actually one of the things that generative AI is good at. It's able to generate a big block of text, and spam email is just exactly that. And then researchers actually predicted that at the end of this year, 90% of online content would be AI generated. There's actually an independent study by some academic researchers that estimates 60% of content today is actually AI generated already, right? And of course, those business email compromise threat actors adopted the new technology, and they were able to do deepfakes into their business email compromise scams, and forced their victims to transfer huge amounts of money by using deepfake videos of executives. But before I move on further about all of this AI talk, I want to highlight that it's not only AI that is changing. There's a whole new set of technology stack that is not present 9 years ago that was continuously developed, that enabled all of this AI development and all of this AI deployment, basically making it easier for everyone to use AI to generate code, generate workflows, generate apps and websites. So that is also on the other side of the coin. That's what's happening, not just the AI development themselves, right? And I'll go to this point later on. So back to 2023, right? A few months after ChatGPT was released, we already see that there are some automation ongoing that abuse this technology. One of the things that we saw is that the proliferation of fake reviews in shopping websites like this, right? We are able to spot this because they forgot to remove part of the response of the large language model that makes it obvious that it was generated by a large language model, right? So it's a mistake on their part. So you must be thinking, this must be something benign, right? So what's wrong with a few fake reviews, right? We also saw during this time, the rise of misinformation campaigns that is using generative AI to generate articles that are biased towards a certain narrative. And we know this because some of the articles, again, they forgot to remove the prompting that they used to generate the articles. And here you can see the actual bias that they are trying to introduce to the article in order to create a narrative that is biased towards what they want to happen, right? So this is from, most likely, a Russian disinformation campaign, right? Because the goal of the campaign is biased towards Russia, right? And as you can see here in the next one, they also they were not pushing just a single article. In this one website that we've encountered, there are several disinformation campaign articles that they generated, and it's quite obvious because the prompting also they forgot to remove before they published on the website, right? So during this time, I challenged my team of researchers, like, okay, how easy is it to create fake content at scale, right? If we are, how are the threat actors doing this, okay? So this is a workflow that my researcher developed over a weekend, okay? Just 2 days on his spare time. And it's using one of the workflow automation tools, N8N. And the purpose of this workflow is that if we are a seller on an online selling platform, right? So there's a lot of online selling platforms that has come up recently, right? Taobao, Lazada, Shopee, aside from Amazon, of course. If we are a seller on one of these platforms and we want to just sell fake products and support those fake products with fake reviews, how can we do it? Okay, so this workflow was designed for that. And I want to show you an example of what we created, right? So this, the real bag is on the left. The fake bag that we asked AI to generate is on the right. We asked AI to also generate a fake person, right? And then we match up the fake item with the fake person and created a fake review video of that particular product with script that is also generated by generative AI.
Turn heads with our limited edition blush quilted tote, the perfect blend of elegance and everyday chic. Featuring luxe gold chain straps, soft premium leather, and a roomy design, it's made for style lovers who refuse to blend in. Only a few pieces exist. Once it's gone, it's gone. Own your statement now.
So, quick question. How much do you think we spent to generate this? We actually generated all of this for free because there's a lot of free services out there that would allow you to generate fake content, fake videos, right? Fake images for free. We actually only paid $20 for one video generation subscription because we had to generate a lot of this, right? So that's how cheap we are able to. We need to spend to be able to just do this, right? So I'm talking about generating fake things, right? The other side of generative AI is that it can help you pretend to be someone else, okay? And actually, this is going on a lot, and one of the threat actor groups that is using this, aside from those business email compromise groups, are North Korean threat actors. There's a phenomenon called the remote fake IT workers that are mostly being staffed by North Korean actors. So in North Korea, right, They are under a lot of sanctions, so they need to generate some money, right? And they're actually using their citizens who are really technically skilled to apply for jobs, remote jobs online, and then they get paid. They actually do these jobs, and then they get paid for these jobs, and they give their salary to the North Korean government, right? So what happens here is that this is a fake, this is an impersonated person by a North Korean actor, right, a fake worker. So we have a lot of information online. So imagine your LinkedIn profile contains your current position, the skills that you have, certifications that you have, and your job description, right? And this actually gives them information on about you as a person. So what happens is that if they see a job posting online, they actually search LinkedIn for an actual person that has all of the skills and experience needed by that position. And then they impersonate that person using all of the information online from LinkedIn. Also, we've seen them using GitHub because there's a lot of like code examples in GitHub, right? If you're you're a developer in tech, proof of work is mostly in GitHub, right? So there's a lot of people who actually maintain GitHub accounts, and then they also copy, use the information from the GitHub, and they use that to impersonate. During the interview, they would use a deepfake tool to superimpose the face of the person that they are impersonating, right? And then they actually also use ChatGPT during the interview because they are in North Korea. There are some things that they don't understand in some cultural context, right? So they actually ask ChatGPT for these kind of things to help them answer the cultural questions better, right? So that they won't blow their cover. And then, once they get hired, they are basically an insider threat. They can move laterally, they can determine which servers contain the confidential information. We've seen some cases where they actually ransom the company that is employing them because they have access to that data, right? So, okay, I will remove your access to that data. You need to pay me money to regain access to that data. Basically, an in-house ransomware. And because they also target technology companies that might contain, proprietary information and technology, technology like code, right? They actually pass this information back to the North Korean government, effectively making them also spies, right? So the worker thing is just one piece of the equation. We've also seen them pretend to be companies themselves. So they create a fake website, and then they create a fake job posting, right? And then they interview candidates, okay? They actually interview candidates. And one of the things that we learned in our investigations is that the candidates they interviewed, during the interview process, they would say, you know what, we want you to do a coding exercise. Access this package, and then you can see what you need to do for that coding exercise, right? But that package would contain crypto stealers, and crypto mining stealers, and info stealers. So what happens is that the candidate that they're interviewing, they're able to access the LinkedIn account, the bank account, as well as the crypto wallets, right? So they can actually pretend to be that person because they are now able to get hold of the social media accounts and other accounts of that person. As you can see here, they're very keen on getting cryptocurrency, both from the victims the victim companies and the victim candidates that they have, because it basically lets them launder money back to the North Korean government, right? So If you wonder how the interview process looks like, we're able to get a video of one North Korean threat actor interviewing, and this is how it looks like.
Hi, my name is and I'm a senior software engineer with over 10 years of experience in software industry. So during my career, after earning the master's degree in computer science, I have been working at many incredible companies like Apple, Airbnb, and Walmart, as well as some innovative startups like LabSkill AI. So I have worked on a wide range of projects, from mobile applications to large-scale web applications.
If you look at the video, it's quite convincing, right? There's no obvious signs that it is a deep fake, right? And what I would like to highlight here is that these types of technology is at this current time, it's at their worst quality and at its most expensive. What I mean by that is that with all of the developments in both the design of the model, the training of the model, the hardware that is needed to run these models, it is currently at its worst and at its most expensive. This technology will just improve and will get cheaper over time. So we need to be really very wary about these things. And we need to have policies in place, guidance in place, education in place to be able to spot these, right? So, I've been talking about impersonation, deepfake content generation, and things like that. But for actual threat actors performing attacks on your infrastructure, how are they using AI? Okay? So, let me give you an example of what we've seen on how a threat actor uses it. So this particular threat actor, APT28, Fancy Bear, it's a Russian-linked group whose motivation is for espionage. In late last year, they deployed a malware targeting Ukraine, right? And that malware is very interesting because it uses a large language model, okay? So I'm going to demo that. So the malware pretends to be an image generation executable, right? But in the background, it has prompts. It has its own large language model package within it called Quen, if you're familiar with that. And as you can see here, the prompt that's running in the background is asking to create a folder and asking to get system information on the machine that it's running on, right? So Quen would then plan and then generate and execute code for this, right? And then for the next one, it asks the large language model to look for all of the files that are in the machine for doc, PDF, and .text, right? Quen generates the code to do that, and then later on, it will ask Quen to generate code to upload all of the files, the documents that it gathered, to an IP address that is controlled by the attacker. Okay. Right? So, but it still does what it needs, what it claims to do. It claims to be an image generator. As you can see here, we've put in a prompt asking it to generate an image of Mozart playing the violin, and it actually generated that image, right? Because Quen, as a large language model, has these capabilities. So, going back to the point that I made earlier, that large language models, generative AI is at its worst and at its most expensive. What I'm afraid in the near future is that maybe malwares in the near future don't need actual code. They just need a large language model and a set of prompts, right? And the large language model will just generate the code that is needed to accomplish what the prompt tells them to do. And this is worrying for me because this can be OS independent. If you have a large language model, the large language model can adjust the code it generates based on the operating system that it's running on. If it sees that you're on Mac, you're on Linux, or you're on Windows, those commands could be different. And the large language model can adjust accordingly. So, another group that we've seen use agentic AI this time is Shadow Ether 40, which is a group that's targeting Latin American countries for espionage also, right? So what we've seen for this group is that this is their matrix attack tactics and techniques, right? So these are the tactics and techniques that they implement that we've seen them do. And in one recent activity that we've seen, 23 out of 26 of their attack tactics, they were able to automate using AI, right? So how are they able to do this? So the attacker is on the left, the victim is on the right. On the middle is the agentic AI system, the diagram that they have, right? So they're actually using Claude, and they are getting other information from other services like Shodan and VulnDB to see which targets have exposed servers, right? Because they are mostly targeting web servers. And then which servers have vulnerabilities in them. And they ask Claude to generate the code to exploit these servers. And once they are on the servers, they establish a tunnel or a backdoor for persistent communication and access. And then once inside the servers, they get to try to see what other servers and devices that are connected, that are reachable by that server, and that they conduct the lateral movement on it. And we've seen them using Claude to prompt the agent to generate the code for all of these. As I mentioned, 23 out of the 26 matrix attack tactics. So, we've seen generative AI generate content for deepfakes, for scams, for impersonation. We've seen AI used for actual attacks on infrastructure. Those are attacks using AI. But can AI be also attacked? Are there threats against AI? So one of the most obvious threats against AI is that the technology stack that is used to train AI, run AI, and deploy AI can also contain vulnerabilities themselves. This graph is the amount of vulnerabilities that against these technology stack over the years. We've started from 2018 with just 178 vulnerabilities on these AI software tech stack, and last year we discovered 2,130. Okay. This AI tech stack contains the AI supply chain, the LLM ecosystem, agentic AI, models, MCPs, data pipelines, and the GPU and architecture themselves. These technology did not really exist 9 years ago. MCP did not exist until 2 years ago. Claude skills did not exist a few months ago. So the rate of development for this AI technology stack is actually very, very rapid. But these technology stacks also contains vulnerabilities themselves that can be attacked by the attackers. Also, AI systems can expose unintended consequences. You've heard about prompt injection, right? So there's a lot of guardrails that have been put in place for prompt injection. But what's most worrying is that if you are developing an AI system, the prompt injection might happen on locations that you are not aware of or that might be invisible for you. What do I mean by that? This is an example proof of concept system that we developed, right? So a lot of AI implementations right now is more for the support because AI can help troubleshoot, right? Can generate the response for you. So in here, it's a simple support system that we have. Customer sends an email to the customer system, to the support system, then the backend would then parse that email, store that in a database, and then the support person can use the tools on the right, the MCPs, and things like that, to help solve the support cases, right? So, what if a user sends this email with some prompt injection instructions, and then it gets stored into the support database, right? In this example, that prompt injection can actually result in an encryption of the database. So in here, you can see the system prompt, right? The system prompt says that, okay, you just need to triage the customer support cases that you have, and then prioritize these customer cases. We are using here open code as a front end. Could be any client for the tech support person. And then, okay, the system says, let's look at all of the tickets that are out there. And then when the AI was able to read that particular support case and the text, the prompt injection runs. And then, as you can see here, the database contents are encrypted. There's no code that run, right? Where's the malicious code? It's the prompt, right? And this is what happens when there's no input sanitation for the database, and then the database to the AI, and then the AI's response to that particular text input. This is why data sanitation would be very, very important in this age of AI. So, I think, I've been saying a lot of doom and gloom, right? But how is the cybersecurity industry fighting back? How are we actually leveraging AI too? And how are we partnering with each other, right? So, in 9 years ago, when the business email compromised, we actually developed a technology called writing style DNA that would flag if an email suddenly doesn't sound or read like it came from that person, right? So it was effective for some time until ChatGPT came along, because ChatGPT is able to defeat this particular technology, right? But what I would like to highlight here is that this is always a cat and mouse game. The attackers can make use of the technology. Us as defenders needs to also make use of that same technology, but better, in order to defeat them, right? Agentic SIEM is also one of the things that AI is good at. We have a lot of telemetry from various security products, from various infrastructure. Each of them has their own protocol, each of them has their own schema, each of them has their own log type. What generative AI is good at is actually transforming these languages, right? So basically, if you ask ChatGPT to translate something for you in Chinese, it can actually do that. You give the large language model instructions, they convert your instructions in normal language into code. So they're very good at that. And what happens here is that Agentic SIEM is able to translate your network logs, your endpoint logs, your email logs into a unified schema, even though they are of different protocols, schema, and logs, right? So this is actually a way that helps us as the defenders deal with prioritization and with all of the attacks that are enabled by AI. We are seeing an increase of attacks using AI to ingest logs, correlate the logs, and prioritize, helps us in dealing with the most urgent task and help with all of the noise, right? There's coalitions that are in place. COSI is just one of them, and I'm giving it an example today. COSI is the Coalition of Secure AI. They are a non-government organization that that aims to work with the technology providers, governments, and other institutions to be able to design policies and technologies for the secure use of AI. Interpol has Project Synthwave. Project Synthwave is an initiative by Interpol to help law enforcement identify deepfakes, be aware that these deepfakes are being used to scam people, right? And use deepfake detection technologies to be able to determine if a video is a deepfake or not, right? Also, internally in my employer, TrendAI, we use AI to discover vulnerabilities. This project that we have is online since 2024, right? So what this does, the system does, is it hunts for vulnerabilities, triages the vulnerability, assess for impact of a vulnerability, and then we only take action for those high impact, highly potentially exploitable vulnerabilities. So far, this system has discovered 60 CVEs, had 100 vendor disclosures, and has 3,000 potential CVEs in the pipeline. It has also helped us discover vulnerabilities in the AI infrastructure technology stack itself. So, as you can see here, several vulnerabilities in NVIDIA, Tencent, Hugging Face, and MCP servers that we've seen online, right? So we're actually using this AI system to identify vulnerabilities in AI technologies. And last but not the least, we've partnered with Claude, right? So Claude is aware that their AI model is being used by threat actors to conduct attacks. So what Claude did very, very recently is that they launched a cyber verification program. What this means is that, okay, we don't want our model to be used by threat actors. But we are aware that cybersecurity companies would use these models, but they are not using these attacks. And the way we use that model, cybersecurity companies, right, the way they would use the models would be very, very similar to how an attacker would use the models. Like, this is a code, where's the vulnerability? An attacker would prompt the same way as a cybersecurity defender, right? So what they did with the cyber verification program is that, okay, these set of partners we validated and vetted that would use our models for good. Therefore, we don't need to have these guardrails in place. So this is a partnership that Anthropic has opened, and TrendAI has become a part of the first batch of validated partners. And I think this is key to where AI needs to go. There needs to be partnership between AI vendors, AI providers, partnership between the users of these AI providers, partnership between the niche specialities of these AI that uses these AI models, especially in cybersecurity, which is also a niche use case for the AI models, right, for the AI vendors. And having this partnership together with government and policy can help make AI safe. With that, I end my session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ren, for your insightful presentation. Thank you.